All right, so you ready to dive in?
Let's do it. Always up for a good deep dive.
Today we're going to be looking at just one passage.
Oh, wow. Single source deep dive. Those are
Yeah,
intense.
it's a powerful one though. Isaiah chapter 53.
Okay, Isaiah. Love Isaiah.
Yeah, and this part it's all about
Wait, is this the suffering servant one?
yeah, exactly, the servant.
Ooh, yeah, that one's heavy.
Yeah, it's really something. It talks about this figure, this servant who suffers tremendously. But the thing is like the suffering has this purpose. It's not, just pointless pain. It's about bringing life and forgiveness to others.
Yeah, it's like substitutionary suffering, right? Really makes you think.
Yeah, and it starts off describing the servant as like this really ordinary guy, someone you might just pass by on the street and not even notice.
Right, he's not like flashy or anything?
No, not at all. But then it says he's familiar with suffering. Like that phrase just hits you right.
Oh, yeah. You immediately know this isn't some, theoretical suffering. This is real, deep, lived experience.
Exactly. And then it gets even more intense because you realize all this pain, all this suffering he's carrying, it's not even for his own wrongdoing.
Right. It's like he's taking on the burden for everyone else.
Exactly. It says he's wounded for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. It's like he's a stand-in taking the hit for us.
Yeah,
That idea is, well, it's pretty radical when you think about it.
absolutely. And it's a concept that's hugely important in Christianity. This passage from Isaiah, a lot of Christians see it as like a prophecy about Jesus.
Oh, right, right. They believe Jesus is the suffering servant. He takes on the sin of the world.
Exactly. And when you see it through that lens, the verses about the servant's silence in the face of injustice, they take on this whole other level of meaning.
Yeah, like when it says he was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. It's such a powerful image, this total acceptance of suffering, even though it's not deserved. And that leads, of course, to the servant's death and burial. But even there, even in death, there's this strange contrast. It's like he's executed as a criminal, but then he's buried in a rich man's tomb.
Right. Almost like it's hinting at something more. Like even in death, he's not defeated.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a foreshadowing. So then we get to like the ultimate question, why? Why would God allow this to happen? Why is this suffering part of the plan? And the text actually says it pleased God to crush him. And that really leads us to the whole idea of atonement, which can be a bit complicated.
Yeah, atonement. Big word, big concept. But I guess like in simple terms, we could say it's about how Jesus' sacrifice makes things right between humanity and God. It bridges the gap caused by, well, by sin. But it's definitely not a simple thing to explain like how it all actually works.
Right, right. I mean, within Christianity, there are all sorts of different views on atonement. Like I've heard of penal substitution, where the idea is that Jesus takes the punishment we deserve.
Yeah, that's a big one. But there are others too, like Christus Victor, where the focus is more on Jesus overcoming sin and death through the resurrection.
So many different ways to look at it. But I guess going back to the passage, like how does it explain the impact of the servant's sacrifice? Does it sort of side with one of those views?
Well, it doesn't get into the nitty-gritty of those specific theological models, but what it does emphasize is the outcome, the results. It's very clear that through the servant's suffering, others are healed, restored, they're made right with God.
So it's about bringing healing ultimately.
Yeah, and there's this sense of hopefulness that comes with it. This idea that even out of something as terrible as suffering, something good can come, something redemptive.
And the passage doesn't just end with suffering, right? It talks about the servant being lifted up, honored. It's like a complete reversal from how he was treated before.
Exactly. Like he was rejected, despised, but ultimately he's exalted. He's rewarded because he was willing to give up everything.
This whole idea of suffering leading to like a greater victory, it's incredibly powerful. And I think it resonates with people even outside of a specifically Christian context.
Oh, absolutely. It taps into something very human, this idea that going through hard times, that it can refine us, help us grow, give us a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world.
It makes you think about what really matters. What are we willing to sacrifice for? For other people, for a cause we believe in.
Yeah, it raises all these questions about what it means to live a life of service, of selflessness. What are we willing to endure for the sake of something bigger than ourselves?
I mean, wow, even just in this one short passage, there's just like so much to think about.
Right. So many layers. But I think at its core, it's about hope.
Yeah, hope. This image of someone willingly carrying the weight of the world for the sake of others.
And it leaves us with a question, a challenge almost. How does this ancient text, this story of suffering and redemption, how does it speak to us, right here, right now?
How does it change our perspective on the hard things we go through, on the sacrifices we're called to make?
And maybe, just maybe, it can inspire us to live a little differently, to love a little more boldly, to embrace the idea that even in the darkest of times, there's always the possibility of hope.
That's a pretty powerful thought to leave us with.
Yeah, food for thought for sure.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. And until next time, keep thinking, keep exploring, keep diving deeper into the things that matter.
See you next time.